Hey, it's Ashley, and I'm here to show you Rootly Retrospectives. So this is our retrospective feature that allows you to create and prompt several different types of retrospective processes at the end of your incidents, depending on the type of incident, the severity, and more. So let me show you how it works. So we're in Slack right now. I have just resolved an incident, and as you can see, we're prompted right away to view the retrospective. So when I click that, it's going to take us straight into Rootly, into the incident page under the retrospective tab. And you can see it's prompted a set of steps that we can move through to complete the retrospective, because we look at the retrospective as more than just the doc template itself, which you can see Rootly did generate here in Notion. You can also generate this in Confluence, Google Docs, or directly in Rootly itself. But like I was saying, a retrospective is more than just a doc. It's all of the things that take place after an incident to surface and implement those post-incident learnings. So in this example process we have here, which is based on our smart default that comes already set up when you start with Rootly, you're going to gather and confirm your data. You can see that there's actually a button here that prompts you through that process. So you're going to verify all of the data that you collected throughout the incident. You move on to writing the doc, hosting the meeting, and finally sharing the finalized retrospective. Each step also has a due date and an owner, which you can configure those to be assigned manually, or like you can see here, we can, I should have said you can configure them to be assigned automatically. And like you can see here, you can also apply these manually. But what I really want to show you is where all of this is actually coming from and how it's set up. So if we head into the configuration tab, and we look at retrospectives, these processes are what define those steps that will be prompted at the end of your incident. So what you just saw is the default retrospective process, but you can see we also have a couple different processes that we've set up that will be triggered when incidents meet specific criteria. So we can look at each one to get a better sense of what this looks like in practice, and we'll start with the critical incident retrospective. So you can see here that this is in use when the severity is either SEV 0 or SEV 1, our highest severity levels, and this will prompt a slightly different process than the default one you saw before. In this case, I've added a step to publish an executive summary, and you can see what it looks like when you set up a step here. So you, of course, input a name and a description of what the step involves. Like I mentioned, around automatically assigning an owner, you can choose a role that will be responsible for this step by default, in this case, the incident commander. Or if you leave this blank, you'll be able to manually assign an owner during the retrospective process. You can see here, you can also set automatic due date based on how many days after the incident is resolved that you would like that to be due. Down at the bottom here, you also have the option to choose whether a step is a required step or an optional step. And as always, when you're looking around Rootly, if something's confusing, hover over these little guys and they'll give you a bit of information on what exactly it's asking you for. So that's the critical incident retrospective. Let's take a look at another common use case we see, and that would be security incidents. It is definitely not uncommon for people to approach security incidents different throughout the incident, but also when it comes to how they're retroed. So again, we've set a criteria here that when the incident type is security, this is the retrospective process that will be followed. Now you can customize these as much as you want. As you can see, I've actually left our recommended default steps in here, which you can do. They can populate automatically. I'll show you that in a second. Or you can define a completely custom built process that looks nothing like this. It's totally up to you. So what I've done here is added a step at the bottom to send the finalized retrospective to legal. This is a common thing that we would see at large, like a public company, especially US based, where there's a lot of regulatory steps that need to be taken in the event of a major security incident. You don't want to rely on people hopefully remembering to take that step. That's super important. So with this, you can encode it right into your retrospectives process. And you can see we've assigned the security lead to automatically be the owner of that step. So if we go back to the retros page, you can see that we have the option to create a process. And like I mentioned, you can start with the default template. You can start with any of your templates that you've created as a starting point and adjust from there. Or you can delete all of them and create something completely different. A couple other things to look at here is on the left-hand side, you can also determine when you want to automatically skip the retrospective. So at the end of the incident, you won't even be prompted to go in and edit the retro. And this is typically for very low severity incidents, or perhaps incidents that only have very contained or internal impact, like they don't even impact the customer experience at all, for example. On the flip side, when should a retro be mandatory? You can also set criteria for this based on severity, type, or even the team that the incident is being owned by. In this case, we have said a security incident is going to be mandatory. And what this means in practice is that the option to skip the retrospective won't even appear. It's just simply not an option. Last thing I'll show you is when we head into the Retrospectives tab on the left-hand side is what we call the Retrospectives index. And this is where all of your retrospectives are collected in one area where you can search and filter the information and also see at a high level how your retrospectives are performing within the org. So you can filter by a ton of different criterias, like the type of the incident, the team, who owns each individual item, and it will automatically update the list for you. So it's really easy to find what you're looking for. And this up here is where you're going to get some high level metrics, again, to see how retrospectives are really impacting your organization. And now I'm in one of our demo orgs, so I've got some crazy looking numbers here. I sincerely hope you do not have 410 incidents with incomplete retrospective steps, but if you did, this is where you would see them. So that pretty much covers everything I wanted to talk about when it comes to retrospectives. I hope that if you give this a try, it makes running retrospectives better for you. And as always, if you have questions or feedback, reach right out to us and we'd be happy to help. See ya!